Hello, I'm David D. Cosmo. Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm joined today by Martin Hanahan, who has a special request that we're going to talk about today, and it's a request to help people out and people who really need that help. Let's back up a little. Martin, first of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you,
We have
Dave.
talked about your foundation a number of times, but I cannot assume that everybody knows. So Forever Sammi is your foundation, your cause, and Sammi was, in fact, your daughter.
Sammi was my daughter. She was the apple of her mother's eye, and she was very colorful and very pleasant to be around. And unfortunately, she suffered with substance use disorder. And on April 10th of 2016, we lost her to an accidental drug overdose. And since then, we have decided to continue to memorialize her through random acts of kindness in our community. Primarily with the substance use disorder and any kind of anything in somebody's life that may have spiraled them into a position because of that.
And ironically, your efforts are talk about fruit coming at the right time. You're making these efforts at a time when our addiction problem is probably at a peak, and there's been more talk about trying to deal with that problem than there ever was before. But talk is cheap. It's when you actually get something going that it's important. You have a rally every year. You've had a great turnout for those rallies.
We have, yes.
Which obviously indicates that there is support in the community for trying to do what you can about this abuse. Now, as it happens, at this time of the year, one of the efforts that you make is really aimed at those that have the problem, and at the same time, a lot of times are homeless.
Correct. I think that a lot of times people that are struggling with substance use disorder, once the enabling stops at home, once the family members or loved ones no longer will condone their behavior, they get to a point where they're just fed up and they just simply say, no more, you have to leave. And unfortunately, sometimes that isn't enough to get the person to be motivated enough or willing enough to do what is required for them to abstain from continuing to abuse those drugs and alcohol. And it doesn't also allow them to be responsible enough to maintain stable employment. Therefore, stable housing becomes a thing of the past, and they find themselves homeless. And so what we do is we recognize the connection between the substance use disorder and a large majority of the homeless community. Obviously, there are people that are homeless for a variety of reasons.
Sure.
However, we tend to believe that a large majority of them are either in their current situation because of their substance use problem, or they can become a victim to substance use because of the hopeless feeling they have, and they may reach towards the alcohol and the drugs.
And may become worse.
Yes, to kind of alleviate themselves from distress. So they'll use it as an escape, if you will, which ultimately will just continue to be a downward spiral. So every year, this is our 4th year we're doing it, we do a Christmas clothing drive for the homeless. But it's really more than just a Christmas clothing drive. And I mean, because there are many places where they can come out from under those bridges or come out of those tent cities and go and probably get a warm jacket or a warm pair of gloves or even a dry pair of socks. But what we do is a little different. We bring it directly to where they are, because I know that a lot of people are prideful, and they may be embarrassed or ashamed of the fact that their life has gotten them to that point. And so we decided that without disclosing their location of where they're at, without disrupting them in any way, we bring them out some warm garments that may be helpful to keep them, to keep them alive first and foremost. Try to make their life just a little bit more comfortable. But while we're there, we also make sure that we share a message of hope with them. I myself have suffer with substance use disorder, and also I have found myself homeless in the past.
Oh.
And so I understand what it is that
You know
they're
where
feeling.
they're coming from.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so we go there because the message is we know how to come out from there. We've come out from there, and if they're willing to, we'd be more than happy to help guide and navigate them to coming out from under those bridges and the tents themselves as well.
So is there a significant number of them who just, for whatever reason, won't ask for help, won't go for help?
Well, I think the homeless community hides. And a lot of people believe, and to a certain degree it's correct, that they hide because they don't want to be disrupted. The police will, okay, got to keep it moving, you got to move on because of the blight or whatever. But there are a large amount of the homeless community that you would see, and you may not even realize that they're homeless as they're walking around, because their pride and their ego doesn't want them to expose the situation that they're in.
So this, and it's really nice that it is a Christmas program, because Christmas is a time for giving, obviously. Mm-hmm. So that is appropriate in terms of what you're looking for. And I guess it is primarily outerwear?
It is. We're primarily looking for jackets, hats, gloves, scarves, and socks, and blankets. Mm-hmm. The things that will give them a little bit of comfort as they're traveling throughout the day, obviously when they rest at night. The clothing such as pants and shirts and things like that, we get a large amount of those automatically, and so we just distribute those as we get them all year round. But primarily in the winter, it's the warmer things, gently worn. We ask, if possible, please have them pre-washed before they're donated, because a lot of times, we don't have the capabilities of washing large amounts of clothing at this time, and the people are going to be putting them up directly on,
right, the immediate use.
Yeah, so,
sure.
We ask that, but we do have 5 different locations. The Petros Pharmacy up in Dunmore has been very accommodating. All of the drop-off locations have been. There's one in Dunmore at the Petros Pharmacy, Commonwealth Financial in Dixon City, Center City Print, downtown Scranton. There's Representative Marty Flynn's office on Main Avenue in West Scranton. And there is also the Hall, and that's at 415 North 8th Street, and that's a new Clearbrook Foundation building.
Okay, and we will be repeating those drop-off spots before the end of the program, so if you are in a position where you're able to help out, and again, as you've already indicated yourself, Mark, we don't want to take anything away from agencies that are already helping and do help, the Keystone Mission, for instance, Salvation Army, they're on the spot all the time. This is a particular effort with particular spots where you can take the clothing, and then Martin and his volunteers are actually going to go into the field and take these items to those people in need. And you're probably going to reach some people who might even be looking for help somewhere else, but you can't get too much help when you're in that situation.
That's correct. As a matter of fact, one of the, we see a large amount of the homeless community on a daily basis, and sometimes we don't even realize it. And to date, the record says that there's only 159 homeless people in Lackawanna County. And I think that is ridiculously inaccurate.
Really?
And so, our message is just to get out there and to go directly to where they're at and meet them where they're at.
You've got to be searching then.
Yeah, we do. In the recovery community, a lot of people that are in the recovering community are just like me and have experienced that in the past. And so there will be people that come into a support group meeting who have been, either are currently homeless or have been in the very recent past. Mm-hmm. And so they know of the locations of the tent cities and the places that they congregate and things of that nature, typically around bridges. And so.
But you can never tell when. I remember going out on a similar quest myself one time as a news reporter, with someone who was offering some food aid for the homeless. And remember going into one abandoned warehouse in the area. Our guide went in first because the folks involved would have recognized him and didn't want us to just suddenly spring ourselves on somebody. And in this place, you could see where they had a fire. And now there's a situation where, sure, that fire gets out of hand, all of a sudden you got a warehouse burning down.
Yeah, correct. As a matter of fact, after losing Sammi, we did our first addiction awareness rally. And it was later on, I was working for a company, and we were doing some construction work on the new NET Federal Credit Union on Mulberry Street in Scranton. And every day, somewhere around 11 a.m. or so, the fire department was dispersed there, and there was just black smoke billowing out from underneath it. Well, maybe not every day, but every other day or something. Mm-hmm. And I remember asking Patrick DeSarno, the fire chief, I said, what is that? And he said, it's the homeless people living under there. They heat their tents with the sternos.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes they catch the tent on fire. And so what other people may have heard as an inconvenience, my spirit was just, I was just a little bit more sympathetic. I was like, these poor guys are just trying to stay warm.
Yeah.
And so I had remembered that Samantha, the year prior to her passing, her and my wife, Samantha wanted to just buy all the dollar store hats and gloves and just go out and hand them to homeless people, because that's who she was.
This is an idea she actually kind of fostered then.
Yeah, she did. And so we decided that we believe that we follow, people say that we respond to the SOSs of the struggling communities. And we say, well, we respond with our own SOS. We respond with the spirit of Sammi. And so Sammi was always one to want to help the underdog. And so it was really a no-brainer. It was, at that point in time, me and my wife decided that we were going to maybe get 40 or 50 coats together. I think last year we handed out well over 200,
wow.
And then donated another 400 or 500 back to the different places, such as you said, the Progressive Center, the CIC.
Well, you really had
Keystone
a great
Mission.
response then.
Yeah, we do. We have had a really nice response, and what's really nice is to see some of the volunteers that come out with their children and their young sons and their young daughters who brave the cold elements themselves. Last year it was mild comparatively to the year prior to that. It was freezing rain, but we go out on December 22nd has been the day that we had chosen since its inception. And this year, December 22nd is on a Sunday, and so we'll be meeting at the Pavilion on Olive Street, again, right next to the Keystone Mission. And that will be our home base hub. And from there, we'll venture out in branches, and hopefully we can fish somebody out from underneath the bridge. And one of the success stories is there's a gentleman today who was homeless, and we had met him. And from there, he went into a sober living, and he started working. And now he is a union heavy equipment operator for an outfit up in New York, and he's doing very well. He has partial custody of his own son, and it's just really encouraging to see them to bite into the apple of hope and say, you know what, maybe I can do this, and so that's why we do it. And
it's encouraging for those who give to know that while they're providing something on an immediate basis, that maybe it is only temporary, because if you get a success story like that,
sure,
now you've got somebody in a position where they can give back, as it were.
And he's come out with this the past 2 years.
Does he self-distribute?
He does. He gives back, and that's one of the things that we encourage. And we say, you don't forget where you came from, and you just give back to the next one. And for transparency reasons, we do some social media while we're out there. It's not for accolades. It's not for praise. It's just simply for transparency so that the people, the kind donations that we get, the people know that it is going towards the cause that we're professing it'll go to.
Sure. Now, when I did have someone in not too long back from the Keystone Mission, one of the things that we touched on, and I think it's important now as you're beginning this clothing drive, is to note that we're not just talking about men.
Correct. That is absolutely correct. There is a larger majority than most people would think are female that are in the homeless community. And one of the saddest things that I think that I have seen was in, I believe it was the second year, I had gone to a baseball field that there's a bridge that goes over it to enter into the field. And for some reason I stopped and said, well, maybe there's somebody under there, not thinking that there would be. And when I went under there, there was a red tent. I'll never forget it. There was a red tent, and the snow had drifted to where it was almost engulfing half of the one side of the tent. And I just simply tapped on the outside of the tent, and a man unzipped it, and he peeked out, and he said, can I help you with something? And what we do is we do walkthroughs to the area. Like you said, your guide had gone in earlier.
Yeah.
I do a walkthrough personally with myself and a couple other people that were previous residents
Sort of
of the homeless
scouted
community.
out, yeah.
And I let them know that, perhaps on this day, about a week from now, you'll see a bunch of pink shirts coming at you. Don't be alarmed. We're not here to roust you. We're not here to disrupt you. We're just going to be, dispensing some clothes and some cookies and maybe a message of hope. And if you're not interested in engaging in conversation, you don't have to even be here, or you don't even have to come out of your tent. And some don't, and that's fine too. We just simply leave them outside of the tent for them. If they are interested in talking, we'd be more than happy to do that while we're there. And so when I was at this tent, the gentleman opened up the tent and he said, who is it? And I gave him that message. I said, listen, I just wanted to tell you that we'll be coming by. And as I was talking to him, I heard a little girl's voice in the back saying, who is that, Daddy?
Oh, boy.
And so I don't know how young she was, but she did not sound like she was even in her teenage years yet.
Wow.
And so I talked to him a little bit about perhaps maybe he needs to, do something, maybe not for him, but for her, and that she deserves some things. And I, of course, I never want to offend anybody.
Sure.
I don't think that he did it with any malice intention. I think that he was just found himself in a position where, the homeless community can become homeless for a variety of reasons, and it's not just substance use disorder, although that is our cause. But we recognize that a lot of people become homeless due to ill health, and just not being able to maintain employment due to ill health. And because of perhaps some glitches in our healthcare system and our insurance programs that we have, they just don't have the monetary funding available to allow them to pay for even low-income housing.
Sure.
So I'm glad to say that when we went back the next week, he was not there, nor was she. My hopes and prayers are that they went someplace that was warmer and more suitable. But yeah, so there is more than just men out there.
So some of the clothing donations really ought to include the fact that there would be some female and children as well, probably a lot more rarely, but...
Correct. Usually we just ask for male and female adults. If we do come across a situation where there is a child or a minor involved, we do have a network of friends. The Salvation Army has been really very gracious with that. If we find somebody who is in need of, child clothing.
And you'll make the effort then.
I would at that point make the effort to go over there and even if I have to do the shopping myself, get
Sure.
them whatever it is that they need. So, yeah, we just want to carry a message of hope, I guess.
So December 22nd will be the distribution date.
Correct.
Has the drive already started then?
The drive has already started. Those drop-off locations have boxes already in place. So if you can give, please do. And if you can't give through any type of clothing or garment, prayers are very welcomed. The hope is that we can just continue to, help alleviate as much burden on our brothers and sisters as we possibly can.
Now, what about the distribution? This can't be a one-man deal.
No, it's definitely not a one-man deal. So we will probably end accepting donations on the 18th of December, and then from the 19th, 20th, and 21st, we have a little factory line that we start where people make up the packages, mail small, mail medium, mail large, and every package gets a hat, pair of gloves, scarf, jacket, and blanket, and socks. And with the other clothing such as pants and long johns and hoodies and things like that, we will have them at the pavilion site so that if we do run across somebody and we give them that care package and they say, hey, do you have any pants? We encourage them, come on down to the pavilion, the Krispy Kreme over here with Mike O'Hara. They have been so graciously giving us coffee and donuts for this drive, so that we tell the homeless community, go on down, get a hot cup of coffee, have a donut. Feel free to look through the clothing articles that are there. There's pants, there'll be shirts and things of that nature as well.
Are you looking for volunteers to help with this, or are you pretty much okay with?
We absolutely would be more than happy. The more the merrier. We think that the more people that we have out there, it shows a greater presence that we are a community that cares, and there are a lot of people that care about these people. There was a story. There was this gentleman, and I'm sure I'll botch up the language and the country, but I had heard this gentleman. He said, over here in America, we say hello, and the response to that is hello. It's the same response, and I believe it's Zimbabwe, some country in Zimbabwe or something like that. They don't greet each other by saying hello. They greet each other by saying Sakiawa. And when they say Sakiawa, what Sakiawa means is I see you. And the response to that isn't Sakiawa. They don't say I see you back. The response is Sakiona. And what Sakiona means is because you see me, I am now here. So that's kind of, I love that message because, because a lot of the homeless community, although they don't want to be seen externally, they want to be acknowledged that they exist. And so just simply by seeing a large amount of, the same way you would greet a gathering of friends that come to your house unannounced, wow, it's nice to be recognized, appreciated, and thought of. That's their house. And so we want to go there and let them know that we see them.
If someone would like to help out in terms of the, not necessarily the distribution, roaming sort of the back alley areas looking for somebody, but you still, as you said, you need the
pavilion has to be manned.
Right, and you've got to sort. The sorting alone is a bit of a job. How can they reach you to?
Well, you can follow us on Facebook, Forever Sammi Foundation. Also, if anybody is interested in donating it, if they have donations and can't get it to one of the drop-off locations, Sean Bingham can make it available to have somebody pick it up.
Sean is one of your co-founders.
Sean is one of the co-founders of the foundation. His phone number is 570-906-5641, and he'd be more than happy to do that. You could also reach out to Sean at that same number, and he'd be more than happy to tell anybody who's interested in maybe sorting if they can't get out there that day, and they could pick one of the days they'd like to help us sort out the clothes. Or perhaps if they would like to come out, but they maybe can't physically maneuver the rough and rugged terrain that we go through. Again, people will need people to be at the pavilion to help with dispensing the coffee and the donuts, and helping give garbage bags to some of the people that come to grab some of the clothing articles there.
So Facebook obviously is one way to reach out, and Sean Bingham is co-founder. His number again?
And Sean Bingham's phone number is 570-906-5641.
I think this is a great effort, and I do appreciate the fact that it's a special drive at Christmas time when people are more likely to make that extra effort. And I think we have to remember that unfortunately, Scranton just a few years back had a situation where we did lose a homeless person lying on a bench overnight in a freezing night and passed away. So you're looking for clothing, for warm coats and socks and boots and such, male and female. And let's go over one more time those distribution points. You can give now. You can bring them now if you got them.
Sure. And the distribution locations are DePietro's Pharmacy in Dunmore, Center City Print in downtown Scranton, that's 119 Penn Avenue, Commonwealth Financial in Dixon City, just at the corner of North Main Avenue and Commerce Boulevard. There is State Representative Marty Flynn, which is on North Main Avenue in West Scranton. And then there's the Clearbrook Foundation Hall, and that's at 415 North 8th Street in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Well, Martin, good luck with this campaign, and hats off to you for the efforts that you're making on behalf of Sammi. She'd be proud of you, I'm sure.
Well, thank you very much, David, and we always appreciate you guys inviting us onto the show.
Glad to have you. Thanks again to our astute cameraman, Mark McGlory, who is behind the scenes. One of these days I'm going to give you his picture. I'm David DeCosmo for ECTV Live. Till we see you again next time, here's hoping all your news is good. Have you got some stuff coming in already, Martin?